Your baby's mind is growing even before they arrive. The more you talk and sing and play, the more their mind will thrive. You gotta talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby, make out you're a lion. Talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby. Your words will grow their mind.
Well, hello and welcome to the Words Grow Minds Parent Podcast. We are a podcast dedicated to giving all of the latest advice and tips on early childhood development directly to South Australian and Australian parents.
My name's Amelia and I am mum to Grace, who is 6, and Ted, who is 2.
That's a really good point. My name is Kate and I forgot to introduce myself. I am a mum to both Sam and Charlie and am a really passionate believer in making sure that every child gets the best start to life that they can, which is why we love to make sure that we bring the research and the evidence to local parents.
And the hot mess stories every now and then too.
Indeed.
Kate, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're talking about something that we know many parents fret about. Many people lie awake, and that is how do we make sure that our little ones are getting all the nutrients that they need to support their growth and development. We're both parents. We both know what it's like to stress about if your child is eating enough, if they're eating the right things.
I literally do lie awake thinking about this too. Like right now, Ted he's gone off meat. And I sit there and I think, is he getting enough iron? Is he too pale? Like, you're just so worried about, and you try really, really hard. And then there are also those days where nothing's working and they eat nuggies and for a week and that's fine.
The really good news, Amelia, is you're going to feel better in 25 minutes and hopefully our listeners are going to feel better and feel like you're equipped with the information because we have an expert here in the studio with us to discuss childhood nutrition, and we'd love to welcome Anna Ritan.
Now, Anna is an accredited pediatric dietitian and nutritionist with more than a decade of experience in both hospital settings and private practice. She's the owner of Nourish Little Lives practice. It's based in Adelaide, where she specialises in paediatric and neonatal nutritional therapy and dietary education, equipping kids and parents with tailored strategies that work for their family's needs. Anna's work covers allergies and intolerance, starting solids and fussy eating, and her simple recipes and guilt-free advice have amassed a following of over 70,000 people on socials. Anna, welcome. It is wonderful to have you here.
Oh, thank you. That was a wonderful introduction.
I'd love to pump you up.
Well, let's keep going from there. So
thanks for having me.
We're so grateful to have you and we want to get straight into it. But first of all, can I just start by asking about what the work you do is? Tell us, what does a paediatric and neonatal dietitian do and what age groups do you work with?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as a dietitian, we're university qualified, so we have to complete a degree. And then we also, as a dietitian, go on to specialise in clinical practice. So there's a big chunk of, clinical placement that goes into that degree. And personally, I've worked as a clinical dietitian in hospital settings for around over 10 years. So working in hospital units with very sick children, supporting families that have, challenging starts to nutrition and life. And that might be in the neonatal unit where we're doing tube feeding, or it might be children that are, unwell, requiring surgeries and or disability-focused care as well. So it can be very clinical, and I've done that for many years. And then I've also work in private practice because I'm really passionate about providing access to nutrition information in a really parent-friendly way so that parents can make decisions about their child's health right from the beginning. And everyone should have access to that sort of information. So I was really passionate about that, and that's what I do mostly in my private practice now.
Can I just talk about the things that are keeping parents awake at night, particularly parents of children in those first 1,000 days? So one example was earlier this week I saw on a mum's Facebook group someone say, I started giving my baby solids, started them on pouches, and now that's all they'll eat. Am I a terrible mother? Am I damaging my child? There's a range of views around, you talk about how important it is that we're meeting nutritional needs. Others will say fed is best, just if they're eating something, that's a really good thing. Where do you sit in all of that? At what point should parents be really worrying about this? And at what point is it okay if we just try our best and if there's something they eat, then that's a good thing?
I think that's a really good question. reality is it probably lies somewhere in the middle. It's neither extreme, right? It's the reality.
Yeah.
So we need to look at learning to eat as a skill, just like walking or talking. So we're really focused on building that skill during those early developmental years. And it's not just when we're starting solids, we're still building skills into toddlerhood and beyond. So it does take lots of practice to learn how to eat. It takes lots of exposure to different foods, so lots of repetition of serving the same food over and over again before your child might accept it. It's a big learning period that children do to develop the skill of eating. So it's really just about providing food, serving the family meal, doing it consistently without pressure, and letting the child learn the skill of eating by you guys eating together and just modelling lovely, healthy eating, lifelong skills.
That's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, it is.
I'm thinking back too. I mean, I think that views around this have changed a bit, but I remember as a child sitting for hours at the dinner table because I wasn't
cannot
allowed to leave until
you
I'd
have
finished
finished.
whatever
Yes.
it might be. Whereas, as a mother myself, I choose to pick my battles. And if my kids really don't want to eat something, then so be it. But is there a point where we actually have to make sure we're getting a certain amount of vegetables, a certain amount of protein? Did my parents have it right, or am I on the right track here in not guilting them and not making it traumatic?
A lot of the stuff on socials as well for babies says, oh, well, babies know when they're full. They can't tell you, but they know. Where does that sit with you?
I think what you're describing is something that I'm really passionate about, which is something called responsive feeding. So when we're setting up a feeding environment for our child, even from the very first moment that they start solids, we want to be responsive to the cues that they're showing us, because babies and children are born with an innate understanding of hunger and fullness. And we tend to lose that over the time if we keep overriding that. So a baby does know when they're hungry and full, especially like from birth, right? They're breastfeeding and they let you know they're crying or bottle feeding. So they cry, they demand feed, and then we feed them and they're okay. So it's that responsive feeding relationship. It's the same with solids. So when you're starting solids, if your baby's, full after a teaspoon, then that's okay. We stop and we don't force them to eat everything that we've made, and we wait until the next mealtime. So it's about just being really responsive to their cues. Babies are very obvious when they've had enough to eat. Like they'll turn their head away, they'll shut their mouth, they'll start crying.
They'll throw the bowl
They'll
across
throw the
the
bowl. Yeah, you can see they're giving you clear signs that they've had enough. That's the time to stop. It's not a time to then go in with another option. Or maybe I'll make something else. Maybe I'll go get a yogurt pouch. Maybe I'll go get a custard. Maybe I'll put the TV on. Can I get a few more mouthfuls in? That's not the time to be implementing those sort of strategies. That's the time to look, my child's given me clear signs that they've had enough to eat. So it's time to stop the meal and we can wait till the next mealtime. So it is that responsive feeding relationship rather than kind of overriding it because we feel they need to eat more. What we're trying to do is follow their cues, and that will continue right through childhood as well, even into toddler years. So toddler appetites change, their growth slows down a little bit. They start moving their bodies. They want to get up from the table. So eating definitely changes in toddlerhood, but we still want to be responsive. So we're still not necessarily making them finish everything on their plate or eat their vegetables first and then their bread after, or whatever order you think they need to be eating food in. What we use is a division of responsibility, it's called, and it's a dietitian actually created that, called Ellen Satter. And it's a wonderful framework where it defines the roles and responsibilities of the parent and the child at the mealtime. So the parents' roles at the mealtime are to, think about nutrition because you know what your child needs. They don't have the understanding of nutrition. So you do need to think about, we need to serve protein, we need to serve fruits and vegetables, we need to serve iron foods. So you plan the meal and serve the meal. So you serve it in a supportive feeding environment. We want to have them at the table or in the high chair, not too many distractions going on. And we want to set them up for success, make sure, they're not snacking all day, they're coming to the table hungry. And then it's really up to your child how much they eat and what they eat off their plate. And we sit and model good eating with them.
Going back to the pouches, I noticed you were talking about it's also the skills for eating. So, and learning how to do that can then set you up for success, sitting at the table as a kid later on. If a reliance on one kind of food, whether that is purees or pouches or whatever, can that, I guess, stop your child's development in other areas? Like, is it helpful for them to I don't know, grab things or, use their mouth in a different way?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think all the advice on pouches currently, and there have been lots of studies on them, they can be useful when used in moderation. They shouldn't be the entire diet for your child because they will miss out on key experiences with food that are really important for developing feeding skill. So children learn about eating through their sensory system. So eating is the most sensory-based skill a child will learn how to do because they have to coordinate their entire sensory system, sight, sound, smell, touch. And if you think about food, the bright, colourful, different smells, different textures. So babies and children need an opportunity to understand that and understand what food is by touching and feeling and playing and interacting with. So their sensory system gets used to all these sorts of foods. In a pouch, we just kind of lose that experience because we can't see the food and the food is all very uniform. It all tastes the same. I don't know if you've tried baby food, but every pouch kind of
did a family tasting. But that's a story for another podcast.
So they all kind of taste really similar. They've all got, 70% apple. So even a savoury pouch will mostly taste sweet. Very small amounts of iron. We know there's very minimal iron in the pouches, so we're also missing key nutrients. But apart from that, it's really just that sensory experience that we're losing. And if we're always on a puree diet, we need texture. Babies can chew from 6 months of age. They do some early chewing patterns. So they don't need teeth to chew, but they actually need texture in their mouth from a really, really young age to develop that lifelong skill of eating food. And that actually helps with their oral development. It helps with language. It helps with,
How does it help with language?
If we think about chewing, we're building a muscle. We're learning to build the muscles in our jaw. We're sitting upright where we have to coordinate our entire body to chew well. And just developing jaw strength, moving our tongue side to side when we're manipulating food in our mouth, not just a puree, which we just swallow. That's all really important for actually language and learning to talk.
Yeah.
Coming back to the things that people lie awake thinking about, I think there is the question of when you introduce solids. And I know with my two kids, I had one who breastfed till he was over 2 and was a milk monster, whereas the other one at 6 months, he wanted
Food.
solids, wanted to try other things, and they took very different paths. And I think what you're saying is that it's not just the nutrition element, it's actually experiencing new things, developing new skills that lead to oral language. So is there a time when parents should be saying, you might be getting all the nutrition you need through milk, but we actually need to be experiencing other textures and other flavours despite the nutritional argument?
So I think that all the evidence to date shows that exclusive breastfeeding, or if you're unable to breastfeed, formula feeding until 6 months of age can meet 100% of your baby's nutrition requirements. So there's really no nutritional need to introduce solids before then. In fact, there's probably little benefit to doing it because your baby's unlikely to be developmentally ready. So we look at developmental readiness as a key before starting solids, and that means your baby's able to sit upright, hold their head still. They've lost their tongue thrust reflex. Otherwise, they're just going to be pushing everything out of their mouth anyway. So there's some key developmental things that are really important before starting solids. They usually happen around 6 months of age. Some babies can take a little bit longer. It is around. Some babies can be ready a little bit earlier. So it's okay to kind of try, and if it's not working, you can stop. But until 6 months of age, 100% formula-fed or breastfed baby can meet nutrition needs. From there, iron becomes important. So the recommendations are to introduce solids from around 6 months.
So going back to, we've started solids. What can we do to avoid having a fussy eater, and how do we know if we've got one?
So fussy eating is a really generalised term because it could mean so many different things, and it's I guess it's a range, right? You could have a child that's just a little bit picky and everyone calls them fussy. You could have a child that, refuses to eat fruits and vegetables and, they get labelled as fussy, but it can also be extreme, sensory processing issues. It could be developmental issues that are also causing fussy eating as well. So there's a big range of what fussy eating actually means, and key periods where kids will naturally just be a little bit fussy, right? Toddlerhood's a key time where children just generally become a little bit more aware of what is put in front of them. They're also going through other developmental leaps, like they're walking, talking, they can say no to food.
Whereas my son goes, no way.
No way. Yeah, it's like a no. They'll throw food. You've got this strong drive for autonomy, and eating and what I eat is something that toddlers love to control. So, and that can just be seen as fussy eating, right? But it's just typically normal for a toddler that we expect those sorts of behaviours. So fussy eating is a big range of things. Sometimes it can just be, developmentally normal. Other times it can be, it can cause nutritional deficiencies if it goes on long term. So there are points in time where you need to be aware of it. We know through studies that so if you're constantly describing your child as fussy and you're going to the pediatrician or the GP, they're fussy, and it's always coming up. We know for those sorts of children, only about 50% of them actually outgrow fussy eating.
So this brings me to my next question. Is the beige phase real?
Can you explain what
and do we buckle down on that, or
the beige phase is first, and then tell us?
Yeah, so not all children will go through a beige phase.
It's really hard to say.
Beige phase. I can't even say that. It's tricky. It's a tongue twister. Yeah, so not all children will go through a beige phase. Some will, and there's a little bit of a developmental drive for that. Like it tends to peak in toddlerhood, where we have what's called neophobia can peak. And that's just a fancy term for fear of new foods. And it's something that toddlers experience, and it peaks from around 18 months to around 6 years of age. So just generally,
it's a really big
it's a big peak. It's a big peak. It's a long, steep hill.
Right
May not last that long, but that's when we generally see, like, you serve something new and they're like, well, what's that? I'm not eating that. I don't know what that is. So the reason why there's a drive for beige foods is because they look really familiar. They're uniform. They look the same every time. You think a piece of bread, pasta,
plain pasta,
rice, crackers, they all look the same every time you serve them. They taste the same pretty much every time you serve them if you're serving them plain. So that's really comforting for toddlers, which will naturally be displaying a little bit of fear towards new foods during that time. They're also easy to eat, right? You don't have to chew them. Like, toddlers are busy. I got other things to be doing. I don't have time to chew my meat. I just want to eat something quickly and get up and move, right? So there's this drive to move your body. And also, look, carbohydrates, they're mostly carbohydrates in our beige food, and that's an important source of nutrition for children. So there is a big drive for carbohydrates in toddlers too. Their brain's growing, their brain uses carbohydrate as energy. Most of our beige foods are carbohydrate. So it can be normal. What you would want to do is make sure that we're still being nutritionally complete. Like, our beige foods also include potatoes and bananas and chicken, and dairy foods that provide lots of calcium. It can't just be crackers, right? It has to be a variety of foods still in the beige phase.
Amazing. So we talked about the range of fussy eaters. Let's say we do have a fussy eater. What are your top tips for what parents can do at home to address fussy eating?
Look, if you are worried about your child and what they're eating and how much they're eating, sometimes the worry itself can be part of the problem, because children can naturally pick up on our stress at mealtime. So if we're already coming in anxious and worried about what our child's eating, they're going to pick up on that straight away. So my first strategy is to really go back to the division of responsibility and feel really comfortable with that. Know that you're doing your job by serving them the family meal or what it is you've decided to serve, and let them decide how much they eat and what they eat, and feel really comfortable with that. So we want to kind of remove any pressure or stress around meal times as the first thing, because otherwise it's really hard to progress with everything else. Secondly, I would say, still serve the foods you want your child to be eating, but without pressure. So if they're only going to eat the plain pasta, that's okay. Put the plain pasta on the plate, but serve some of the bolognese on the side, put some fruit and veggies on the side, and let them still look and see and touch and feel, because sensory learning about food is going to be really, really important. So we don't want to stop serving the foods just because they're not eating it, because otherwise our diet becomes even more narrow. We lose our variety. So keep serving the foods you want them to eat, but without pressure. And then also look at how you can meet the nutrition requirements. So, if they're eating fruit but they're not eating veggies, then maybe we up our fruit serves a little bit more during the day, just while they're learning about vegetables still. Will they eat vegetables mixed in with their dishes? They might not eat broccoli or carrot on its own, but they might have carrot grated up in a bolognese sauce. So how are they eating veggies? Think about it.
Veggies.
Sneak them in.
And I guess we're not necessarily hiding. We're not trying to trick them. This is another thing that comes up. I've been told I can't hide veggies in my kids' food. My approach to this, again, it's not black and white. Eating vegetables on their own are tricky. They're bitter. They require a lot of work. They don't taste great. As adults, we can go, I'll eat them because they're good for us. But kids don't think that way. So make your veggies taste good in the meantime while they're learning about eating veggies on their own. So it's okay to add vegetables into your dishes because that's the way your child is eating them at the moment. And we're still serving them so they can learn about them anyway.
How do you know when you need help?
If we're looking at fussy eating specifically, if eating is causing a massive amount of stress in your home, and mealtimes are feeling like a battle, they're going on for forever, you're dreading mealtimes, that's a good time to get some strategies to support yourself because, as I said, that stress is really going to make progressing with your strategies harder. So it's time to get some help at that point if you're really, really stressed out. If your child's not growing, so their nutrition intake is really impacting their growth, like their growth slowed down, they're not putting on weight, your pediatrician's concerned, that's a good time to get some help. If they've got nutritional deficiencies, like iron deficiency is a very, very common one we see in our fussy eaters. So that's also a time to get some help. Some other key things is if they're avoiding whole food groups. So if you're really, really stuck on just carbs and they're avoiding all fruits, all vegetables, all protein and iron foods, then that's a time to get some help. And then just generally looking at variety. If there's very, very limited foods that they're actually eating, like less than 20 foods in total across food groups, that's also a key time to get some help.
All right, Anna, we've covered some really good ground here. We're going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to you and get your top tips on how we can make sure our kids are eating really well but also fitting within the family budget because everything is expensive right now. And I'm also going to do a bit of quick fire with you on social media myths, so I really want to get your thoughts on that. We'll come back very soon. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Anna.
Your baby's mind is growing even before they arrive. The more you talk and sing and play, the more their mind will thrive. You gotta talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby, make out you're a lion. Talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby. Your words will grow their mind. Every time you interact with your child, you're helping grow their mind. For more information, visit wordsgrowminds.org.au.
Well, welcome back. So now I want to have a chat about creating healthy habits for little ones. And we know that there is nutrition to consider. We know there are behaviours to consider. But there's something else that parents have to consider a lot, and that is budgets. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that sometimes it seems like it can be cheaper to buy unhealthy food, cheaper, quicker, easier. Do you have any tips for parents on how we can prioritise nutrition but do it at a time when lots of families are really struggling with the cost of living?
Yeah, it's a really valid question. And like even my shopping bill with, 3 kids, 2 adults, I think sometimes is excessive.
Yeah.
Like it's huge. It's definitely gone up in the last couple of years. So it's a very, very valid thing that families are facing at the moment. It's really important to still think about nutrition though, and sometimes we can get caught in the trap of, is it cheaper for packet food? It's probably not when you look at the price per kilo. So if, for example, if you looked at, say we looked at pre-made meatballs, their price per kilo for that would be more than just buying mince on its own. So sometimes we can think that something is cheaper, but it's actually not when we look at the price per kilo. So I would say when you're shopping, do pay attention to that because buy your cheaper cuts of meat, go your chicken legs, which are going to be cheaper than chicken breast, or get turkey mince, which is cheaper than grass-fed beef mince. So there are things that you can look at the price per kilo in the supermarket to still get access to nutrition or highly nutritious food, but still be a little bit cheaper. Yeah, so cheaper cuts of meat. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid of frozen veggies. They're great. They're snap frozen. They lock in nutrition. If you've got a child that's a bit funny with veggies anyway and you still want to keep serving vegetables to them so they learn about it, you can use frozen veg.
Anna, that is what we're here for, to make life easier for parents.
You can just pull out what you need, cook up a teaspoon even. So you're putting a little bit on their plate. So we've got those frozen veggies there, and the whole family can eat frozen vegetables. Well, just chuck them into your bolognese or into your lasagna, and you've added in a whole heap of fibre and nutrients, and it's quite cost effective in that sense. Tinned vegetables are also fine too. Like, if you want to bulk out a bolognese, you could put in a tin of lentils into that mix too. So you're adding in fibre and protein, and they're quite cheap. So you're getting a bigger batch of food for less money, and then you can freeze it as well. So I would say they're probably key things to look at. And don't be afraid. Is it Woolworths that do, or one of the places do the ugly fruit?
Oh, both of them do.
Yeah.
I think one of them calls it the odd bunch. And both of them do.
Yeah, so even like they come in a pack as like there's the fruit and veg that doesn't look as good. It's cheaper. So
especially when your kids prefer them cut up anyway.
Yeah, cut up anyway. No one's actually going to be serving it whole. So that's something else you can try as well. I think having a good meal plan's useful too. Like rather than shopping every day and getting stuck just grabbing stuff on the go, like having a little bit of a plan for your family meals for the week can help to save a little bit of money as well. So we're not doubling up on ingredients that we've already got in our pantry. We're not overly buying things that then we have to throw out at the end of the week because they've gone off. So I think having a plan is important too. Keep it simple. Just grab some simple carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables, meat on the plate. That's actually a complete meal. So don't overcomplicate things too much either. Keeping it simple is completely fine.
Should parents and kids be eating the same thing?
Ideally, yes, or part of. Because children learn through watching their parents eat. So if you're eating something, I know that it's safe. We're modelling eating, so children love to see their parents and join in the meal. But there might be times where if you're eating like a curry and the child's probably not going to eat it, then you might serve something slightly different. You might pull some of the meat out before you add your spices in and serve that plain with some of the rice on the side and some of the veggies. So you kind of do a deconstructed version of the family meal if you can.
Because I assume here parents are also role models, and that's a skill. That's where kids pick up their skills as well.
Absolutely. And also, if we're looking at saving money, you don't want to be making 3 different meals or 2 different meals. It's much more cost effective and time effective to prepare the one meal for the family. As I said, you might have to have a little bit of consideration for your child's skill and where they're at developmentally. And make sure there's, something familiar on their plate if they're going through that fussy toddler phase. But there should be something from the family meal that you can serve to your child at any age so that they can join in.
From your experience, when we look at toddlers and those in early childhood, if there's one thing that you think that families are not feeding enough of to their children, what is it?
Oh, that is a tricky question.
Pen ready. I'm about to write this down.
Look, iron deficiency is the most common deficiency that we see in children in Australia and worldwide. So I would say good quality iron foods is probably something that we're not getting enough of or not serving enough. So it is, heme sources of iron, so meat, chicken, fish, lamb, important sources of iron. We also have plant-based sources of iron as well, so like our legumes, seeds, nuts. So those sorts of foods and in enough of a quantity every day to make sure we're meeting our iron requirements is important.
Kids run on the smell of an oily rag though. How do you know? They just have boundless energy. I guess as adults, you're iron deficient if you're really lethargic and tired, but kids may not show it that way. How do you know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Iron deficiency is a tricky one because sometimes children who are more hyperactive, running around, that can be a sign of iron deficiency. Trouble sleeping, not being able to fall asleep, constantly waking through the night, that can be signs of iron deficiency, or like being overactive sometimes. Tiredness is still a cue for children, very, very pale skin, thinning hair. In extreme cases, we can see a behaviour called picker, which is eating non-food items. So if they're, sucking on baby wipes, eating tissues, eating sand and dirt a lot, that can be a sign of iron deficiency. And even just like irritability, just general behavioural type issues because they're not getting enough iron would be some of your key signs. But if you're concerned, obviously go see your GP and discuss your concerns, and they can work out whether or not they investigate further with a blood test.
I'm going to put some really quick social media trends to you now. Bento boxes. Are kids more likely to eat food if it looks really good? Like you see the people cutting out the sandwiches and shapes and they put the little skewers in.
Oh, that we're talking Insta-worthy,
yeah.
like bento boxes. I would say it depends on the child. Not all children. Some children will find that very overwhelming. If you present all of these different options to them in a big pile of food, for some children, that's just going to be way too overwhelming and they're not going to be interested in that at all. So they might have the opposite effect. For other children, they might show a little bit of interest in like fancy cut-out sandwiches, and it might actually help them to have a few bites of something. So it really depends on your child. Again, I'd come back to keeping it simple though. You don't need to go to that amount of effort to, every day for your child's lunchbox. It's entirely unnecessary. Keep it simple. A simple sandwich, a piece of fruit, a cheese stick, some whole grain crackers. It's really all it needs to be. So you don't have to go to that sort of level unless you want to.
Exactly, that's it. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
There are a few Instagram accounts that I've seen recently say their technique to getting their kids to eat veggies at dinner time is to serve a plate to the kids of chopped up veggies first before the main meal. Mm-hmm. And then they get it rather than filling up on the bread and the meat and the hot dogs or whatever you do. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that?
Sometimes that can be a good strategy. So in those sorts of families, what tends to happen is, say the child comes to you at 4:30, it's like, I'm hungry.
Oh, it's the worst.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And they're almost in meltdown mode because they are hungry and dinner's not ready, say, for another half an hour until 5. If you were to then go give them a packet of crackers, some milk, they're obviously going to eat it because they're starving, but then they won't eat their dinner. So the idea with that is, if you serve a plate of veggies and put it out, because they are hungry, they're motivated, they might actually eat a little bit of the vegetables before they come to the table. It's not enough to fill them up. So they're still going to have an appetite for the main meal. So it can be a useful strategy. And the other great thing about it is if they've eaten a whole load of veggies before they come to the table, then all of a sudden you're way more relaxed and you don't care whether they eat their veggies off their plate, and then they'll eat better anyway because everyone's more relaxed.
And the last one is swaps. You see a lot of Instagram accounts, and I know you're quite good at doing this too, where you look at what you might typically buy from Woolies or Coles or Foodland or wherever, and you swap it for something better.
Yeah.
That's a real movement at the moment.
Tricky because sometimes better isn't affordable, or better might not be in your area. You might not, if you're rural, you might not even have access to those products. Mm-hmm. And better might not be something that your child eats. So I always approach it in a way where I'm providing information. These are useful things to look at. These are some good choices that you could make.
So what do you look at when you're making a swap?
I would look personally at the nutrition information panel and the ingredient list, and I'd be checking to see, especially for children, that we don't have excessive amounts of sodium.
And what does that look like though?
That would look like a high sodium, depending on the product as well. But without getting too technical, something that was over, 400 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams could be something that was too high in sodium. But there are exceptions to that. Obviously, cheese is naturally higher than that anyway. I'd be looking at just to make sure that there's like really whole ingredients in there. So, what are the first ingredients that come up on the packet? If sugar's one of the first ingredients, then probably I'd be looking for something else if I was, looking at crackers or biscuits or things like that. So it can be the order that foods are listed in. And then I'd be checking to see that there's not, I guess, an excess of added ingredients in there. Like how processed is it? Is it more of a whole food, or are we looking at a really, really ultra-processed food?
This is the one question that we ask every guest on this show, and that is, with all that you know and all of your experience, what is the one thing you wish parents knew?
About eating and nutrition?
Anything you want to say?
As the mum of 3?
As mum of 3, I would say that children will eat like children, and it's often our perspective of eating that really changes the mealtime environment. So I guess making sure our expectations are age appropriate for our child is going to set them up well for eating.
I love that.
I love that too. Now, Anna, we're going to ask you to give us some places where people might be able to go to get more information, some socials you might recommend, and we'll put that all in the show notes.
Great.
But can we just thank you so much for being
I could ask you
today.
questions all day,
Thank you for having me.
All day. But maybe we'll get you back again.
I would love to
great
come back.
Chatting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Right, Kate, that was such a great chat. What did you take away from it?
Well, one, I could have talked to her all day.
Seriously.
And I have no doubt that we have listeners that have many, many questions and comments on that episode. So I can't wait to hear from them. But I think I really took that. It's not black and white. You know, we actually need to be practical. And what I really love is, like so many of our guests who are saying, it actually comes back to the parents. This is about the parents and changing the way we think about it and the pressure we put on. So I think that is a message we keep hearing. What about you?
Absolutely. I loved hearing the science behind that and just the other skills that kids are picking up while they try new foods or textures, while you might just be sitting there going, quick, we've got to get to the doctor's appointment or whatever. That's actually an experience for them and that's something they're learning, and it's really interesting to, you know, reframe that in your mind. And I loved at the end Anna's tips on what to look for and how to make some budget-friendly choices as well. But as we were saying to Anna before, we have grabbed a whole heap of resources from her. We'll put them in our show notes. But also we really want to hear from you, our listeners. Comment, whether it's via Spotify or on the socials. If you've got questions for Anna, let us know, because we absolutely want to do another episode with her. It's dangerous that we have her phone number now.
Watch out, Anna. But no, great episode, which brings us to the end. So can we just once again thank you to Anna Ritan, and of course we'll see you next time for the Words Grow Minds Parent Podcast. Thanks for listening to the Words Grow Minds Parent Podcast. We love hearing from you, so please subscribe, review and comment on the podcast. And for plenty of ideas to support your child's development, go to wordsgrowminds.org.au and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Your words will grow their mind.